Hello, and welcome back. This video is about starting to build the Tower Manager, which will be responsible for tower placement. And a special thanks to all my supporters. Thank you for helping me help others. So the first thing I'm going to do is import a PNG. So for that, I prefer to copy it into the folder itself. So I'm going to right click here, go Show in Explorer, right click and paste. We have my highlight.png. Close that. Unreal will pop up the import dialog. Click that. Now there's a number of ways to make a material. You can right click, create a material, and go through that process. In this case, since I have this texture, I'm just going to right click that, create material. I'm going to call it m_highlight because I prefer that naming convention. We open this up. First I'm going to set this view to cube so we can see our texture. It'll be on all sides. Next I want to set the blend mode to translucent. And for that to work, you need to drag in the alpha into the opacity. And there we go. And lastly, because we want to be able to see the inside as well, we can make that two-sided. Next, with how I want to be able to choose the tower locations and later the towers, I'm going to go into our project settings under collision. We have object channels here. I'm going to create a new object channel. I'm just going to call this tower. And default responsive block is fine. And then down here in our presets, I'm going to create a new preset. This preset I'll also call tower. I want this query. The object type will be tower. And in the description, I will just put, I am the very model of a modern major tower. And I'm going to hit ignore all, but I want trace types turned back on. With that said, I'll now create a new actor. We'll call this BP Tower Base. This will be the base parent for all the towers and the empty tower. So I'm first going to add a box collision. To match the size of Kenny's tower defense towers, we're going to set this box extent to 50-50-50. And because I want it to be above the origin instead of the center being on the origin, I'm just going to pop that up 50. And then down in our collision area, we can set our collision preset to tower, which will fill in this value, or set of values. And then I'm also going to add a cube. This cube we can call highlight. And not surprisingly, the material here will be our highlight. Similarly, this will be 50 up. I will next create the tower manager, which is also just an actor. In the tower manager, first I want to create a variable. Call this tower locations. This will be of type actor array. We also want this instance editable. So we're going to set these tower locations in the editor. So for that, I want to zoom out a bit. I'm going to drop in the tower manager anywhere. With it selected, you can see we have our tower locations. This will be for each of our dirt spots. So there are 11. And for each of them, I can use this little pick from scene. Now you'll note here I have the dirt tiles actually have the hill tile name. I'll explain why that is in a sec. When I created this level, I made it all from these pieces, the hill tiles, and then I selected a bunch, right-clicked, and went to replace selected actor with the selection, and down here was dirt. So it changed the actor to the dirt, the tile dirt, but it left the name. As you can see, if I select here, it is a dirt tile, but it left the name as is. So you can go and rename those if that's important, but we're going to leave that alone. With our tower location set, I can then go in here and on begin play, I'm just going to iterate through tower locations. I'm going to use that to get the actor location. Going to add 10 vertically because that's the size of the dirt. And then I'm going to spawn actor from class. This will be for our tower base. Right click the transform so I can see the location and pop that in there. So when we run that, so you can see that it created all of our empty tower bases. Now you can see all that flickering. So the flickering is happening because the bottom of the texture, or rather the bottom of the cube has a texture which is at the same Z location as the stuff underneath. And while we're going to fix that by shrinking the mesh, it's also good to keep in mind that there are many indie and even AAA games that don't even bother fixing that. So to fix that for us, we're going to go into our highlight and we're just going to shrink this little cube a little bit. There we go. So now that was showing all the highlights. We don't want that. We're going to go in here. We're going to look for visible and we're going to uncheck that by default. Then we're going to create a function which we'll call set highlight. We'll send along a bool value is highlighted. And all this is doing is taking our highlight mesh, calling set visibility, and sending along this value. Now with that set, back in our tower manager, I'm going to create a function here. We'll just call this update highlight. This is going to be called from tick. And in here, we're going to put a sequence. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to get our player controller. We're going to use that to get hit result. Did I spell it properly? Under cursor. Now we have two options here. We have channel and objects. Let's show what channel looks like first. So channel is, you pick a trace channel, and while this runs, it's going to send out a hit result, which has a lot of information. We care about the hit actor in this case. So this version will just do a trace line, and whatever actor it hits, it will return that information and a bunch of other stuff. In our case, we don't want the hit result to be able to find anything, so I'm going to delete this. I'm going to get the other version. Get hit results under cursor for objects. So in this case, it's required that you send an array of object types. So if we go down here, type make array, this will list all the object types, including our newly created tower. So for that, we can drag this in here. We want to drag this off, hit B. So in the case where it successfully hits something, we then want our hit actor, cast that to our BP tower base. fix this up a little bit. And when we successfully have the hit result on one of our towers, we can then promote this to a local variable. We'll call this new tower. So as this is a local variable, it's either going to be set to null, or if our mouse is over a tower, it'll be set to new tower. In that case, we want our new tower, and we want to create a variable called highlighted tower. Highlight. This does not need to be an array. Control drag both of those out in the case where these are not equal. We're then going to do two things. So we'll put another sequence. The first thing is when we already have a highlighted tower. So we're going to drag this out, convert it to a validated get. If there's no current highlighted tower, it's not valid, it does nothing. Otherwise, we want to set highlighted. This actually needs to be set to a tower base. And now we can set highlight. So now it got all confused because this was the old one. Let's delete this one, right click that, convert to validated get. And in that case, it's when the new value is not the old value. We have an old value, we want to make sure it's not highlighted anymore. Otherwise, we're setting our highlighted tower to the new tower. And then we also want to set highlight here. And that will actually be highlighting it. So you might be tempted to do it this way. We have our new tower, and we're setting it to our highlighted tower, and then we're highlighting it. However, as I said earlier, when this function starts, new tower is set to null. If this is invalid, it doesn't get set. We then are setting highlighted tower to null, which is what we want. But then this would be a problem here. So we could do the same thing here. Just pull in our highlighted tower, convert that to a validated get, and then have the is valid popping out here. The other way is we just check to see if this is valid. So there's two versions of is valid. This is just a little pure function. In this case, we can just save that slight bit and make it the actual check. All right, with that all set, we go back in here. We hit play, we don't have them show anymore. When we highlight over the collision box, then it's making the highlight visible. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video and would like to see more, you know what to do. And if you would like to support this channel, watch these videos 2 weeks early, or just want to download the project files, you can do so through my Patreon linked below.